Showing you. Basically, you and I have to deal with this group, this whole group. Children are in this group, the innovators. I'm sure even you have 5 children like that. This is the group, and we're talking about a group that is less learning inclined and have lower social mobility. And the late majority, a group that is below average inclination towards learning and adopt innovation only when forced. Now we have to deal with CCE in a classroom where you please add up 13.5 and 16, you add this up, basically it comes into 96 or 98% of children we have to deal with. That is the kind of groups that we have to deal with, and we have to deal with them in different ways. Because every child has to learn at his own pace. So what do? I've divided my classroom into groups. Children who can cope with a much better concept get much tougher kind of MCQs. Children who are middle level but then what does it mean? It means teachers have to work harder. It means one teacher has to make 3 papers. Ye aapko lana hai. Because you see, if I am Amita, I cannot be you, because for the simple reason that I do not have your skills and abilities. My experience is not his. My background is not his. How can I be him? So how can a child be another child? He cannot. So you have to actually make that child understand at his or her own pace. Now everybody says, iska kya matlab hai? Iska matlab hai that we have to look at the content. You talk about high order thinking skills, then talk about middle level thinking skills, talk about lesser level thinking skills. And then how do you develop it? And I can assure you, if a child with a lower mental IQ manages to get, say, even a B, he starts aspiring. He starts coming and saying, "Ma'am, mujhe wo wala paper de dijiye, wo wala de dijiye, मैं कोशिश करूँगा." But it's all about काया को कष्ट देना. हमें अपनी काया को कष्ट देना है. क्या हम देना चाहते हैं? साफ बात है. So today, a lot of us feel very stressed because education was quite easy. Now it's very difficult. 24/7 I am dealing with education. I'm sharing this with you. I get home at 8 o'clock in the night. It's important that we have to take this on as a mission. Now I'm going to talk to you about the latest thing in education today all over the world is the 3rd millennium ABCs. And what is the 3rd millennium ABC? The ABC, aspiration is managing, agility is catching the moment, astonishment is always being amazed at what the child can do. But we are not amazed what the child can do. All the time we say, isko kuch nahi aa raha hai. Isko kuch nahi aata hai. We do not bring in the wow factor into the child's life. In fact, all the time we are saying, tumne pata nahi kyun yaar maths liye, tumhe kabhi nahi aane wali. I know it. Sorry, aapko to aati hai. Blockers. Beat the obstacles through resources, arguments, evidence, and action. Beat the arguments that come up against whatever new things you're doing. Through some resources, through something. You don't have a fancy audiovisual aid. Use a Coca-Cola top, use a straw, use matches. My maths lab doesn't have some very fine things, but it has a lot of things made by hand. Jodo Gyan, wo jo banda Jodo Gyan mein hai, Shaji. He started off with what? With matches, with tops, bottle tops. So it's not about having some fancy things. You and I share the space of people who have been the greatest teachers of our time. The Buddha, Christ, Ramakrishna Paramhans, Guru Nanak, Gandhi. They were some of the greatest teachers of our times, and they never used books, blackboards. They never had registers. You must have registers. And yet, they changed the lives of millions of people with just love and belief in the other. You believe in your child, my friends. You make your child visible. Every child wants to be visible. If you make your child visible, you have won. We say, where do we have the time to make children visible? I have 80 kids, where is the visibility? But for whatever it takes, I remember when I was teaching in a school long ago, when there were many kids, मैं हाथों पे उनके नाम लिखती थी, याद रखती थी, he's got a round face, so he must be like the Buddha. I used to try to remember their names, because I'll tell you one thing, people are people because of other people. That's an Ubuntu saying of South Africa, in the states of Northern Natal. You are who you are because of me. If I don't acknowledge you, you are nobody. Let's be very clear, my friends. That's the bottom line. So let's get back to this and talk about obstacles. You will face many obstacles. The moment you want to do something good, you will face a million obstacles. You know that. Now, collegiality, communication and collaboration. A sense of ownership. Do I own this institute? I'm in an institute, I'm in a school where I'm not the owner, but I feel a deep sense of ownership. You as principals must be feeling very proud. I just met Renu, who is so proud of her school because she must be connected to it with a sense of ownership. This is my school, my personality, I want it to develop, and so on and so forth. So the sense of ownership, co-exploring and sharing, communicating learning spaces. It's very important that we bring our entire teaching faculty together into this sense of ownership, because only I can't own the school alone. Unless everybody feels a sense of ownership, we are nowhere. And collaborating, listening to the outside voice and exchanging, sharing and learning. Very important to listen to the outside voice. Now I want to look at your classroom. This is the third millennium classroom. What is a third millennium classroom? Never more than 3 walls. Now what do I mean by that? Never more than 3 walls. In our country, we have been stuck in this space for the last 3,000 years. You know, it's very interesting. If you get into a time machine and you go back to 1800s, and then you travel from that time machine back to 2011, and you travel in a hospital, do you know the kind of changes you will find? The hospital space has really changed in our country, yes or no? But the blackboard remains the same. We are trapped in these 4 walls. There is nothing. I remember I went to Korea once. You enter the classroom, you feel that it's transparent. When the lecture started, she just touches the wall and the wall keeps coming alive with what she's teaching. And you have figures going around, whether it's maths, it's fantastic. Diagrams are splitting, they're moving around. I mean, it's a virtual reality life. There are countries like this, and yet the amazing thing is there's something very, very fine about our teachers. Because even without all this fancy stuff, we are teaching. Now, if in our teachers' hands we had all this, imagine where we'd be. Imagine where it'd be. So I think we have to move towards a more bigger leap towards education. So never more than 3 walls actually means, can we have an open classroom? Metaphorically. But metaphorically, can we create a classroom which necessarily is not blocked classroom? No fewer than 3 points of focus. The same thing I said. If you're teaching a subject, let it have at least 3 points of focus into something other than the context that you are teaching. Other than that. If you're teaching rainfall, let it be connected with something else. Something to do with crops, something to do with floods, something to do with drought, something to do with sociology, and talk about how rainfall patterns have changed across the world. Something to do with history, how complete civilizations got wiped out because of rain and floods. So never less than 3 points of focus, and always able to accommodate it at least 3 teachers. Now again, this is an ideal situation, but I think any classroom which is large, 80, 100, should have at least 2 teachers accommodating. And when I take 3 teachers, it's important that at least 3 teachers get to look at a child when the child is being assessed. Because you see, one teacher becomes very subjective, and it's very difficult. Because even if she does very well, there is some child who is not going to do too well. Some comments will have to be made, whether positive or in whatever way. So it's important to protect ourselves. At least 2 to 3 teachers should assess the same child, so that the teacher does not become victimized. My friends, at the end of the day, teachers are the single source of differentiation in a school. We need to manage their aspirations. We need to create opportunities. Continuous learning has to be fostered. And handling non-performers, high performers, and managing our stakeholders is what I've told you about. So welcome to the first day of school. Teachers are not supposed to look like this, but actually, metaphorically, I always tell my primary teachers that when the little babies are coming to school on the first day, ye tumhari shakal hoti hogi, because they are crying, but you're not really crying. And this is the principle. This is you and me saying, I expect you all to be independent, innovative, critical thinkers who will do exactly as I say. So friends, I always believed in Gandhi and said, be the change, but listen to this. People do not resist change. They resist being changed. But they will if they can see the value of change. You and I are the change makers who have to show them the value of change. The value. I want to end with the last little story of Leonardo. 80 feet in the Sistine Chapel in Rome. In a Sistine Chapel. And he was lying down on that scaffolding, and he was 80 years old. He had arthritis. His hands were twisted. And he was lying over there, and he was painting the Sistine Chapel. It was a huge thing. And he would sit there for 16 hours, 18 hours and paint. Old man. और जो उतारते थे उस ज़माने में, I'm talking about the 1700s and so on, where scaffolding and it's cold and there was no heating. And when he would come down, one guy said to him, "Hey, Leonardo, why do you do this? Why do you do this?" And he said, "The pain passes, but the beauty remains." So my friends, right now we may be thinking this whole business of education and reforms is painful. But the beauty that will come out of it will be amazing, because our children will be ready to take on the world, take on the universe in 2020. And that's why you and I are here, for that purpose. Thank you and namaskar. Thank you very much.